As we continue to plug away at disc 1 of the epic Sign of the Times album, we've reached the sweet, easy to sing along with Starfish and Coffee. And joining me to discuss this track is Karen Shedrick. Welcome back to the show, Karen.
Thank you for having me.
As always, you've been a very valuable guest for my show over the years, and today we're going to be talking Starfish and Coffee, and it's kind of like one of those easy to sing along with, as I mentioned, fun, light kind of songs off of the album. It follows It, which is a really kind of hard thumping, danceable, but still kind of very sexually driven track. And then you jump into a song that is so innocent in many ways that it can be sung on The Muppets Tonight, as Prince did in 1997. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have to change any of the lyrics, really. I mean, it was rated G from the start, which isn't always the case with some of Prince's songs, especially in the 80s when, he was mixing a lot of more sexual imagery into some of his songs. But Starfish and Coffee isn't that song at all. It's for public consumption 100%.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on the song in general, Karen? Is this one of your personal favorites off of the album?
Actually, it's not. I didn't like it at first, which was why, I wanted to kind of talk about it today because I have a different take on it now. But, when I first heard it, I like you said, it was so different from what I was used to hearing from Prince. And I was like, okay, what is this about? And, in the beginning, I would just kind of hear it for a few minutes and then just kind of skip over it, not really listen to it. But over the years, I've grown to like it, or I guess I should say more appreciate it for the lyrics and the storyline behind the song.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's one of those, it can be a polarizing song, I would say. My experiences with people in this song, it can be definitely polarizing. Maybe kind of in the way that a song like there's songs from other artists. I'm trying to think, like the Beatles have had songs that Paul McCartney wrote that were just seemed like really simple, like Obla Dee, Obla Da from the White Album. Mm-hmm. Kind of sing along, Obla Dee, Obla Da, life goes on. And that song, for some people who really like more of the complex and experimental songs for the Beatles, they hate that song. That they just cannot stand that song because it sounds almost like a children's song. Starfish and Coffee, I think for some Prince fans, kind of feels like that in some ways, especially on an album like Sign of the Times that has some really complex compositions and some really deep, meaningful, lyrical songs like Sign of the Times or If I Was Your Girlfriend, or even something really emotional like Forever in My Life or Adore. Mm-hmm. Starfish and Coffee can come across as just a little bit of almost too lighthearted in some ways for some fans.
Yeah, I agree. And that was actually a good example, the Beatles song. That's actually a very good example of what this is to Prince fans, I think. But again, you have an appreciation for the song over time because it is popular and it is a good song. It's just not, one of my favorites, but I do enjoy listening to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. And as I mentioned, the Muppets Tonight performance back in 1997, yes. Prince. So that's endearing in a lot of ways. I mean, the whole story behind it, how it all happened, ended up in a, kind of more of a tragic story because the song, as the lore goes, was intended to be part of because he re-recorded it. It's not like he just lip-synced the 1987 version from Sign of the Times album. It was a re-recorded version Not a lot of differences, but you can tell if you're listening to the two songs back to back that they aren't identical. There's some minor changes in the music, not the lyrics so much. But it's slightly altered, re-recorded, and it was probably going to be for a children's album that Prince was thinking about recording, or I talked about recording at the time. I think it was called like Happy Tears or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, so this would have been recorded around '96, as his wife Maite at the time was pregnant with Amir, and of course we all kind of know what happened. Unfortunately, to that situation, Amir was born with Pfeiffer syndrome and died shortly after birth. And so any plans that Prince might have had for a children's album, of course, at that point would have been completely scrapped, just due to the nature of his emotional state and just what happened to him and Maite. But this performance still went on as it was originally planned, I'm sure, and so a lot of people got to see a really lighthearted version of Prince. You know, somebody who was okay, kind of reaching back a little bit into the past. It wasn't like distant past, but at that point it was 10 years, and pulling a song out from, you know, almost like a previous lifetime in his mind. You know, 10 years passing in Prince music is like a lifetime. And reaching back and performing this song with a smile on his face, and really, you know, it was done in a way that I think a lot of people hadn't seen Prince be so jovial and easy for him to do this in front of an audience. And I have to assume that it was recorded before his son was born, because it would have been, I think, maybe too tough for him to do this afterwards. But I don't know that for a fact. I don't know exactly when it was recorded.
Like you said, it was a different side of him that no one had seen. It was on national TV, so it was a much broader audience. You know, people who probably would never see Prince at all had the opportunity to see him. So
Yeah.
I was really glad he did that.
Yeah, me too. And that video is available on YouTube for anybody who had not seen him perform Starfish and Coffee on Muppets Tonight. And there's even a Prince version of a Muppet, you know, that's supposed to represent
I saw
him.
that.
He's got the symbol on his jacket, so you know it's him. It's pretty funny.
It was.
So the song is kind of like another story song, like Ballad of Dorothy Parker, which is also on disc 1 of Sign of the Times. But instead of a song about a woman named Dorothy Parker, this is a song about a young girl named Cynthia Rose. And the lyrics of the song kind of tell a story about who Cynthia Rose is and what makes her so special or different from the rest of the children that Prince is singing about. And for people who maybe know the song but don't know the backstory, I will do my best to kind of reiterate what the story of Cynthia Rose is. But Prince's girlfriend and fiancée at the time, Susanna Melvoin, had told Prince a story about this girl that she knew, that she and her twin sister Wendy from the Revolution knew, named Cynthia Rose, as kids. So this is a girl that went to school with them for many years, in elementary school and up into like 6th grade, I believe. And Cynthia was just kind of known as being really quirky, kind of living in her head. Not, you know, she would just say things that most kids wouldn't say, seemingly coming out of nowhere, but I'm sure in Cynthia's mind they made total sense. You know, like the idea of somebody living in your mind, you know, you have all this stuff going on in your head, so then when a little fraction of that comes out of your mouth, to everybody else who's not in your head with you, it seems like it's coming from nowhere, but to the person who's living this life, it just seems all very normal to them. And so she just had all these really kind of interesting stories about this girl. And so she would tell Prince about it. And I guess he had asked if he could write a song about, you know, the story that Susanna was telling him. And she said yes. And he disappeared for like 10 hours and came back with this song. And as we go through the lyrics, I'll point out some things about, you know, that kind of at how that generated, and maybe some of the choices Prince made, some lyrical choices to to change what was really told to him versus what he ended up putting in the song, because there's a couple of lines, or at least one very notable line in the chorus where he felt like he had to make a change from the original story. But because this story is based off of a real person, and much of the lyrics were generated from these stories, Susanna Melvoin had received a co-writing credit for this song. So he gave her a co-writing credit just because, it was really her story that he put to music. Is that kind of how you understand it as well, Karen?
Yeah, that's exactly how I understood it as well. And it was surprising to me how, from the stories that she told him, how he came up with this song, and that you wouldn't think that a story like that would inspire him in such a way. So I was really surprised that from what she told him, this is what he came up with, which is outstanding, in my opinion. Just from having a conversation with her about someone she grew up with, that he came up with this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that just kind of shows the brilliance of his songwriting and just ability to turn anything into music.
Right.
And there's other examples of that in the future. I think we haven't gotten to it yet, but the B-side from the Sign of the Times album, La La La, He, was also another one of those songs that was kind of pulled out of nowhere off of a bet. Like, I bet you can't write a song about, a dog barking. He's like, yeah, you want to bet? So again, Prince can muster up enough creativity from just about anything, and this was another example of that. And actually, this was a pretty good basis of a story to create a song about, but it just didn't seem like a song that he would have written around this time. He wasn't really writing songs like this too much. I mean, the Parade album was pretty heavy, a lot of relationship stuff. Around the World in a Day, I guess, might have been an album where a song like Starfish and Coffee might have felt more at home because of his exploration of some like more psychedelic and thoughts about the world in turning them into songs like Paisley Park and Pop Life with interesting imagery. There's a lot of interesting imagery in Around the World in a Day, the song itself. So a song like Starfish and Coffee would have made sense on that album. Here, it just kind of speaks more to the eclectic nature of this album in general. To have a song like this right after It and right before a really sincere ballad like Slow Love, this album is all over the place. But that's kind of also what makes it a bit brilliant at times too. Doesn't have to be completely cohesive. Okay, well, I think it'd be good to start going through the lyrics if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, so the song starts off with kind of a jarring alarm, like a bell, like a ringing alarm, like the old style alarm clocks that you would have back in the day. Now we just set our cell phones to wake us up using the really soft tones, but back in the day, if anybody remembers the old style alarm clocks, they would be pretty jarring and loud. It would just be that ring, and that's what we get at the beginning of the song to just kind of jar us from the thumping bass and synth lines and drum machines of It to completely different style of song, very piano based. Like the melody of Starfish and Coffee is very much done on a piano, or at least has a piano sound to it, with some kind of cool backwards sounding drum machines going on as well later on in the song. The first line of the lyrics shortly after the song begins is, "It was 7:45, we were all in line to greet the teacher, Miss Kathleen. First was Kevin, then came Lucy, third in line was me. All of us were ordinary compared to Cynthia Rose. She always stood at the back of the line, a smile beneath her nose. Her favorite number was 20, and every single day. If you asked her what she had for breakfast, this is what she'd say." And then we get to the chorus, which I'll speak about in a minute. But yeah, here we are, first verse, and he's basically painting us a picture of, a normal day at school. I mean, you get 7:45. You're starting to get ready to file into the classroom, and that's where the first line is of the song. Miss Kathleen, we have to assume, is their teacher. Just starts name checking a bunch of kids, Kevin, Lucy, and me. But the thing about this with third in line was me. I always at first I was always thinking this was like, Prince telling the story, but now knowing the backstory behind it, you're wondering if he's singing it from the perspective of Susanna. So third in line was me, meaning Susanna, because she's the one that actually went to school with Cynthia Rose, not Prince. I don't know if you'd thought of it that way or considered that yourself, Karen.
That's actually something I never thought about, but it makes perfect sense. But of course, when he performed it on TV, we saw the Prince puppet when he said "Third in line was me."
Right.
But yeah, I think back then when he wrote this, that would make absolute sense that he was thinking in terms of Susanna, because,
Right.
like you said, it was her story, her experience. So that would make sense.
Yeah. But of course, when he's singing it and he says "me," most people are going to assume he's talking about
Yeah.
himself. I mean, that's just natural. And then in 1997, to your point, yeah, he's pointing to the Prince Muppet character that was created for this
Yeah.
performance, and because his relationship with Susanna had been over for over a decade by that point, so of course he's
Mhm.
not going to turn that situation into like a memory of his time with her when he was married to
Also,
Maite.
right. Also, the bell at the beginning, I always thought of that as the school bell, like the
Oh,
start of
yeah,
class.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, I forget that there were times where if you were just kind of hanging out outside of school grounds or just on the somewhere in the building, just kind of lingering, talking to your friends, and there would be a bell to kind of alert everybody it's time to get your stuff together and head to your classroom because school's about to start. I don't know if that's something that still exists today or not. Maybe some younger people that just recently went to school and have experiences here in the past 10 years because I'm too old to to know
Mhm.
that. And I haven't asked my kids because for the most part, nowadays, especially during the pandemic, you drop them off at school, they go straight to their classroom. There's no lingering in groups anymore, hanging out before class. That's kind of over for now, at least. But yeah, good point. Good point. The line "All of us were ordinary" compared to Cynthia Rose, I like that one just because it instead of saying all of us like instead of saying Cynthia Rose was weird or Cynthia Rose was different, he says it in a different way. He says we're all very ordinary compared to her, which is
Mhm.
saying the exact same thing, right? I mean, it's still kind of saying Cynthia Rose is unique compared to the rest of us, but he's pointing out more how ordinary everybody else is, not how different she is.
I thought that was a great way to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Not
And
single her
actually,
out, but in a good
exactly.
way.
Yeah, in a good way. In a good way. All of us were ordinary compared to Cynthia Rose. Almost sounds like it's a compliment to her. Like she's special, but
Hmm.
not weird. One thing I wanted to read in this line because I think Susanna's words are really helpful here to kind of understand context. So there was a quote that I'm going to read from her and regarding Cynthia. My sister Wendy and I knew Cynthia intimately because we shared 6 years together in a classroom, plus a bus ride to school with her. It was on these bus rides that I got to know Cynthia. She never had much interest outside of her own personal space, so watching her was an unedited version of what was going on in her head. I'm sure if Cynthia were in school today, she'd still be as interesting and extraterrestrial as she was back then. I think Cynthia was dropped off from another world, a world filled with extraordinary images, images only Cynthia knew the meaning behind. I just like that quote because again, it gives a bit more context to this girl and what, somebody who is quote unquote ordinary thought of her and thought of like how she maybe perceived and went through life.
Yeah, it gives you more insight into what kind of person she was on a day to day. And I wasn't, I don't know if it's written anywhere, if you know, if she did she have like autism or some type of disability, or was that just who she was, like quirky?
Good question, because I've definitely read accounts where people say, like, I don't know if they're making assumptions or not, but I've definitely heard autism thrown around as a way to describe Cynthia's behavior. But whether or not that's a clinical assessment of her, or if it's just an assumption, that I
Okay.
don't know. But I've definitely heard that same thing, Karen, where autism, it sounds like, for people who maybe know folks who have autism, they say, yeah, that those are signs of somebody who is autistic. These are some of the behaviors that they exhibit. But I don't know if she's ever been clinically diagnosed as autistic. That I don't know. Somebody knows,
Okay.
they can definitely let us know. But yeah, good point. I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to necessarily
Yeah.
assume she was, but I did want to bring it up at some point, because I'm sure people had maybe thought of that when hearing the story about Cynthia. Oh, that sounds like maybe she was autistic. So that could be where that came from.
Could be.
She always stood at the back of the line, a smile beneath her nose. That's just another line, kind of. I'm sure that was based off of reality. Like, for whatever reason, Cynthia always felt like the back of the line was her place, and
Mm-hmm.
if they weren't, I don't know if they were lined up alphabetically, like some kids have to be lined up alphabetically. R is towards the back half of the alphabet, but it's not exactly, like a Z or a Y or something like a
Right.
W. So you would think that they would have been kids with last names starting with letters that come after R. So for her to be in the back of the line almost seems like it was Cynthia's choice. Like, she just chose to be there because that's where she felt comfortable. She wanted to be behind everybody else. Didn't take it as something to be embarrassed by, or even like, this is a, like, some kids always want to be first for everything. But if you're just lining up to get into class, why not last in line? I mean, that means it's just, you're the last one to have to go to class. If you wait to stand at the back of the line. She's always happy, smile beneath her nose, another sign that this person is very comfortable, at least with outwardly, with who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Another kind of cute story about the next line. Her favorite number was 20 in every single day, and this is going to be another Susanna quote, because I just feel like Susanna's a great storyteller. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've
She
heard her
is.
speak, but
She
she
is.
definitely knows her way around words, and can speak very eloquently about stories that she's experienced. So instead of me trying to fumble around and tell the story in her words, I'm just going to read them. Sixth grade was the last year our class was to be together. It was the first bus ride that year that something was different about Cynthia. She sat quietly in her seat, staring out of the window, and when we arrived at school, and as the bus pulled into the lot, Cynthia turned my way, looked me in the eyes, and asked if I wanted to know something special. I couldn't wait. We stepped outside of the bus, walked a couple feet, when she leaned into me and said, "Do you want to know what my favorite number is?" I said, "It's 12, right?" Cynthia's answer, "It's 20." Then her beautiful Martian-like way, she smiled into her hands and said, "Because it really makes me happy." Running off in her Groucho Marx Martian kind of way, repeating the number 20. So I guess based off of that story, 12 had typically been Cynthia's favorite number, and something that she expressed quite often. Like, I don't know most of my friends' favorite numbers. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that, even as kids, but especially now as adults, having a favorite number just seems almost like a very childlike thing to possess, and to express. And I don't even know if I have a favorite number anymore now as a grown up, but I'm sure Cynthia had probably expressed her favorite number as 12 for so long that everybody just assumed that it was. And all of a sudden, kind of out of the blue, she declared 20 was now her favorite number. And that was the number that Prince used for the lyrics in this first verse instead of saying 12.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had never heard what you just talked about, that Susanna talked about. I had never heard that before about the number.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
Hmm.
So I stumbled upon it during some research, so I thought it was worth repeating because I don't know if that story is quite as well known as some of the other ones about Cynthia Rose.
Yeah, that was a new one for me.
And then the last line of the verse before we get to the chorus, if you asked her what she had for breakfast, this is what she'd say. And so this is where we get the chorus. Starfish and coffee, maple syrup and jam, butterscotch clouds, a tangerine, and a side order of ham. If you set your mind free, baby, maybe you'd understand. Starfish and coffee, maple syrup and jam. Okay, so as I alluded to, Karen, you know what Starfish and Coffee originally was supposed to be?
Yes.
You want to tell everybody?
Starfish and pee-pee.
Exactly. That is actually what Cynthia told Susanna and Wendy and whoever else asked that she had for breakfast every day. Starfish and pee-pee. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, where do you go from there? It's like somebody tells you what they have for breakfast, starfish and pee-pee. Neither of them are actual foods, that people would eat for breakfast. It's not like, one is a normal food and one is not. It's like neither of them. These are not things that people eat. So, again, you just have to kind of wonder where that came from. If it was just something Cynthia came up with, thought it was kind of fun, and just stuck with it. Makes you wonder what she really had for breakfast. Like, did she just have cereal and then every day she was imagining it was something much more extravagant and kind of like fantastical? I'm not sure. I really don't know. But this is what she said: starfish and pee-pee.
Well, I think it was probably, obviously she didn't really have that for breakfast, but
right.
A lot of kids have imaginations, and they just kind of create stories anyway. So clearly this was a story that she had come up with just being a kid, saying something funny to get a reaction from people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And the funny and kind of not funny, but interesting thing about that, if that's the case, she really, leaned into that. She stuck with it, I guess. Like her answers never really kind of deviated from her stock response: starfish and pee-pee. And for a kid to kind of stick to their guns in that way, because I don't know, I mean, you would think it'd be easy to say that for a while and then maybe switch up to a different kind of funny combination, or eventually just give in and say, just kidding, I actually just had a bowl of cereal or a waffle or something. But I guess she, as the story goes, she really leaned into this answer and stuck with it consistently over time, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But of course, Prince was like, "Yeah, I'm not writing a song called Starfish and Pee-pee. I just can't do that. This isn't how I'm going to make the song and sing the song live for the rest of my life, Starfish and Pee-pee." So he asked, I guess, Susanna if it was okay if he changed that word to something else, because it's her story, and of course she said yes, and he came up with coffee as a suitable replacement for pee-pee. So still a liquid, so he's still sticking with the liquid category.
It kind of rhymes too, coffee, pee-pee.
Yeah, it has the same like the same sounds.
Yeah.
Ending in that E sound. So yeah, a good suitable replacement, Prince. I think most people would rather sing along to Starfish and Coffee than Starfish and Pee-pee. So wise choice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just the rest of the stuff, he mixes in real foods like maple syrup and jam with another thing that is completely fantastical and not real, butterscotch clouds. Then he got a tangerine, which is a real fruit, of course, and side order of ham. So just mixing in stuff that doesn't make sense with stuff that does, and it's just the way he sings it, just very starfish and coffee. It's just a very sing-songy chorus. Not that most choruses aren't, but for whatever reason, this one just feels like it's easy to remember. The lines are super memorable, so you don't have to listen to it that many times to finally get it. You can sing it by the time he gets to the second chorus, second time singing it. Just about everybody can sing along to it, even if it's the first time you've heard this song, because it's so memorable. Anything else in the chorus you wanted to mention? I like the "If you set your mind free, baby, maybe you'd understand" line. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the one that stuck out to me. To try to get the listener to understand, where Cynthia Rose is coming from, and maybe just in your own mind, set your mind free to just kind of understand life in general, or understand Cynthia Rose's life.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting that he put that right in the middle of that, where he was talking about what she had for breakfast, hey, and wait a minute, just set your mind free and just go with me on this. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're just thinking of it from a very closed-minded perspective, you would listen to Cynthia Rose tell you that she had starfish and pee-pee for breakfast, and he might get angry, like, no, really, what did you have? Like, this is stupid. This doesn't make any sense. What did you actually eat? Why do you keep saying this every day? This doesn't make sense. But if you, for instance, point, if you set your mind free, maybe you'd understand. It's more not necessarily like, oh, I get it. It's more just why put your narrow-minded views about the world onto this person who is clearly living in a life that allows for like childlike wonder and allows that person to definitely think outside the box, instead of you forcing her to adopt your belief system or the way you think. Why don't you set your mind free, expand your mind a little bit, and get on her level, and it's kind of like that. Like maybe you can have something real fun for breakfast, and you can tell everybody someday, come up with your own combination of unique foods and non-foods that you have every day for breakfast, and tell your story and see what kind of a reaction you get. That's kind of what I get about it. It's just open your mind, let somebody else kind of just blow your mind for a little bit, and maybe you'll, instead of being angry or upset that the person is so weird, you'll learn to accept it and maybe adopt a little bit of their freedom of thought, freedom of expression into your own life.
Right. I think it's an early take on mindfulness and just staying in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
because it seemed like Cynthia Rose stayed in the moment. Whatever was going on in that moment was her life. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So then we get to the second verse of the song after the chorus. Cynthia wore the prettiest dress with different color socks. Sometimes I wondered if the mates were in her lunchbox. Me and Lucy opened it when Cynthia wasn't around. Lucy cried, I almost died. You know what we found? And then he sings the chorus again in the same way he did before. So here's just more about describing Cynthia. This is more of like describing her appearance. She wore pretty dresses, but which is not abnormal. That's a very typical behavior, typical dress. But of course, the quirk is that she wore different color socks. So she can't just look like every other kid. She had to like separate herself somehow, some way. And one easy way to do that is just putting mismatching socks on, which I guess is not that odd anymore. It was I guess a trend. I don't know how long ago it was now, where kids would wear mismatched socks on purpose. Now, whether Cynthia did or if it was just like, I don't really care, so I'm just going to grab whatever socks I can find, and if they're mismatched, cool. But it sounds like it was more like a stylistic choice that Cynthia made, for her to do that so frequently, I guess, as the story goes. The interesting line here was wondering if the mates were in her lunchbox. So, of course, the character, whether it's Susanna or Prince, whatever the perspective that you are thinking of, wondering like, okay, so how does she get these different color socks? Does she bring pairs of socks to school and then swaps them out, and puts the their partners in their lunchbox, or if it's just another way for the person who's singing the song to kind of put some sort of normalcy into it. It's like, does she do this at home? Does she bring him here? How do we reconcile her odd behavior with what we know to be kind of what's standard, what's expected, and that's wearing matched socks? Well, where are her mates? Where are her sock mates? What's about this second verse, Karen, do you typically enjoy when you listen to it?
Well, I thought it was interesting that when they opened the lunchbox, it upset Lucy. It was kind of like they were, trying to find out something about her and probably open something that she cherished. And she, when you upset someone like that, it upsets you. So I thought that was interesting that they made reference to that. What happened when they opened the lunchbox, that it upset her. And I think, how kids are, it probably started out to be about the socks, but then they were like, well, let's just see what's in here. Let's see who she is and what she's got. And, they crossed a barrier, and got her upset. And because they cared about her, it upset Susanna.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the line, Lucy cried, I almost died, what we found. And then he just repeats the chorus. It's like, well, that's a really extreme reaction to finding this in her lunchbox, crying and almost dying. Of course, you don't necessarily have to say that I almost died, meaning literally almost
right
died, but just like I died, I died laughing, or I'm dying, because this is so interesting or weird. People use the word dying to mean more than just, end of life. But yeah, I always felt like that was a really extreme reaction, like maybe a little beyond extreme. I don't know if they were thinking that it was going to be, well, actually what it does is it paints a picture in your mind of people looking in a lunchbox, but since it's like, do we see inside the lunchbox? Was there really starfish and coffee, maple syrup and jam, or was there something else in that lunchbox that caused such an extreme reaction from Lucy and Prince / Susanna? It kind of makes me wonder if starfish and coffee, maple syrup and jam, butterscotch clouds, tangerine, and a side order of ham are what Cynthia told everybody was in her lunchbox, but when they actually opened it, they found something different.
Right.
And you don't know what that is, because he never really tells us.
That's kind of my take on it too, that they found something else. not what she had been talking about. And that's why she was upset.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what they actually found. I get for some reason I always get visions of Pulp Fiction. I don't know how familiar you are with that movie, but that briefcase in Pulp Fiction that they open up, and they never, like Quentin Tarantino never lets us see what's inside the briefcase, but it glows every time they open it, and they're all just like, they have like this look of wonder and on their faces and just like they can't believe what they're seeing. And I get a little bit of that same vibe when I hear the song now. I mean, obviously this was written before Pulp Fiction, but it gives me the same kind of vibes for sure.
That's a good one. Yes, that's a good analogy to this. Absolutely. I didn't even think of that. Good one.
It's just, it's almost like what you don't know and what you don't see is more interesting than trying to show us or tell us exactly what was in that lunchbox. Yeah, so we get the chorus again, same exact chorus, which is something, I mean, Prince oftentimes changes up choruses, but I think in a song like this, where the chorus is almost like just as important as, or more important than the verses, when trying to just kind of give us the vibe of the song as being a really sing-songy. To switch it up might not have been a wise choice. So to stay true to the chorus and repeat those lines over and over. I mean, I have a T-shirt with these lyrics on it. That's how kind of memorable and iconic they are. And if you would have changed it up too much, it might not have had the same impact. But because he repeats them, the few times that the chorus is sung, it just kind of sticks to his guns on this one. And this is the chorus. This is how I'm going to sing it. This is what the song's about. We're not going to try to get too creative in this one. We're not going to go too many different paths. The song stays in its lane for the entire 3-minute runtime, which is fine. Verse 3. So then after, I think Susanna gets also a background singing credit as well. But then there's the Starfish and Coffee in the background, and he sings, Cynthia had a happy face, just like the one she'd draw, on every wall in every school, but it's all right, it's for a worthy cause. Go on, Cynthia, keep singing. And that's really the last set of new lines for the song. And I think it's a really nice bow on the lyrics. It's kind of like saying, it's all, whatever you do, Cynthia, as long as you're not hurting anybody. And, she's drawing happy faces on the school walls, which could be considered vandalism, I guess. But he's saying, don't worry about that. It's for a worthy cause. Because, smiley faces, not like she's drawing some, hate speech or just scribbling just random stuff. It's a smiley face. That's kind of like her tag, if you're thinking
exactly.
Of it from a tagging perspective or graffiti artist. That's her tag. It's a happy face. And he's basically, and how I'm taking this is it's okay to be you. Do you, Cynthia, and we'll do us. And as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, as long as it makes people happy, except for, of course, the people who feel like they have to clean up the walls after she's done tagging with her happy faces. Keep singing, keep drawing, keep singing. Is that kind of the vibe you get from this verse, Karen?
Yes. Keep singing, Cynthia, keep living. Keep living your life. Paint your walls if it brings you joy, because it's like you said, it's not hurting anybody, and the worthy cause is you. So I like that that he had the singing or had the thought to say, keep singing, as in keep living your life. And, that could go for anybody, keep doing yourself, keep doing you, as you said. So I thought that was a good reference.
Yeah. Yeah, the worthy cause can not only be to make other people happy when they see your smiley faces that you're drawing on the walls, but make yourself happy.
Right.
The worthy cause could just be your own self-care, own mental health. This is something you feel compelled to do and it makes you happy, then go for it. Again, as long as it's not hurting anybody, then what's the harm? One thing I thought about as I was kind of doing some preparation for this episode is, we talked a little bit about how Prince heard the story from Susanna and felt compelled to write a song about it. And we thought that just in and of itself was fascinating. He just felt like this song was, or this story was worthy of creating a song about. But I kind of wonder at times if maybe Prince saw a little bit of himself in Cynthia. Not to the extreme, idiosyncratic behavior that she exhibits. But part of me wonders because, he's always been described as, and he's even described himself as having music in his brain. He just is driven by the creation of music and it's always in his head. And that's why he wrote so many songs, is because that was his way of coping with all the music that was always in his brain. He had to get it out there and put it into recordings. And part of me wonders, if he heard the story about this girl who was kind of quirky, different, looked at maybe a little bit differently because of all of the stuff that was going on in her brain, it makes me wonder a little bit if Prince thought, gosh, maybe to a lesser extent, but that was kind of like me as a kid. I had music in my head all the time, and sometimes I might have seemed aloof or distant from other kids because, while they were thinking about this, that, or the other, I was pretty focused on my music and the creation of music. So I just wonder if that was potentially another driving factor for Prince to create this song. And, kind of taking that worthy cause. It's okay if it's for a worthy cause. So instead of drawing happy faces on every school wall, Prince was creating songs every day, making songs every day. But it's okay. It's okay. It's for a worthy cause. You know, it serves two purposes. One, it gets the music out of his head so he can just function, just be a functioning human being. And number two, the worthy cause is that people who listen to his music benefit from the creation of these songs on such a regular, routine basis. Just something I thought about. I might be out of left field on this one, but kind of makes you wonder a little bit.
Well, it's a different way to look at it, and I often thought, you know, obviously he felt some sort of connection to the story about Cynthia Rose, that she was different and she wasn't necessarily always accepted for who she was, and that was, like you said, that was kind of his life. You know, he was sometimes not so much an outcast, but just different from everyone else. You know, but he stayed true to who he was, which is what Cynthia did, and, you know, kept living his life the way he wanted to, which was why he became so wonderful for us. So I do think that he felt some sort of a kindred spirit with her when he made the song.
It certainly makes sense. Whether or not he truly did or not, we're just speculating. But
yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me at all if hearing this story about this girl gave him maybe a little bit of flashbacks to his childhood. And as I said, nobody is accusing Prince of being autistic, but at the same time, we all know that he was unique. I mean, that's what made him so successful. That's what made him so prolific, and it made him so well loved, I think, was because of his uniqueness and his lack of fear, especially when it came time to make music, you know, publicly, to express himself in ways that other artists weren't doing, which is what endeared him to so many of us, I suppose. So it's like a story song about a girl, but also maybe a little bit about himself, and also a way to show us that it's okay to be unique, even if you're not as unique or as special as Cynthia or Prince. We all have enough uniqueness in us if we're willing to set our minds free and kind of let ourselves go in ways.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it can be a little bit of a lesson song as well.
Right.
Which is maybe why he felt like it was a good song to sing on Muppets Tonight. If you know, it tells a good message to kids who are listening to it.
Exactly.
It's okay to be different. It really is.
Right.
Different isn't bad. Which sometimes, you know, when we're young, you always want to fit in, right? I mean, that's kind of like the goal. Everybody wants to fit in and not feel like they're on an island. And while, you know, being too different can also be very lonely, I think there's ways to express your individuality while also making sure that you don't alienate everybody, trying to find that balance. Maybe some people will be drawn to you because of your differences, and you would have been just another face in the crowd if you tried to fit in, even if it wasn't the real you.
Exactly. And that's Prince. You know, he didn't fit into any box, and he didn't try to. He didn't want to. You know, he stayed true to himself. And, you know, it would appear that Cynthia Rose did the same thing. She stayed true to who she was. You know, she dressed like she wanted to. Prince dressed like he wanted to. You know, it was a lot of, you know, things that you can attribute to Prince as well as Cynthia in that song.
And just to kind of close out, I don't know much about it, but I guess the real Cynthia is aware of this song and she loves it. That's what Susanna had said in an interview not too long ago. Was Cynthia, the real Cynthia Rose, knows of the song and thinks it's great. So that's just a nice kind of postscript to the story.
Now, do you know, I mean, I'm probably guessing no, but do you know if she ever met Prince?
I don't believe she did. I don't believe
Okay.
she did. She just kind of, I don't know if Susanna made her aware of it or if somebody that Cynthia knew made her aware of it. But no, I don't believe she ever met Prince, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
a lot of us never met Prince, so
I know. That's also unfortunate. Yes.
join the club, Cynthia.
Yes.
All right. So Karen, any final thoughts on the song, or do you think anything else you wanted to express? You think we covered it all?
I think we covered it very well. You gave me some insight on the song that I didn't know about before, which makes me, appreciate the song even more. So I definitely appreciate that. And, for anyone who's listening, who didn't know these tidbits or maybe have more tidbits about the song, that would be helpful too. But yeah, I think we covered it. I think we
Cool.
did a good job.
All right, very well. Well, thank you again for joining me, Karen. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm Jason Brenninger. This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. You can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, other places. If you can rate and subscribe, that would be great. I think it really helps the show be found if more people subscribe and rate the show on whatever avenue that you're using to listen to the show. I can also be found at Press Rewind Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, pressrewind.net. I try to use my blog to write little stories about Prince's music or just do some reviews of random stuff that I'm really into at the time. So check it out if you're interested. And I also post older episodes. I'm trying to go back and add some episodes onto the blog. Also on YouTube now as well. You can check out Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast on YouTube. I post episodes without the music attached to it because YouTube algorithm instantly flags every episode that I try to put any music in. So I have to extract all the music, but all of our conversations are still there. And I try to put some more interesting stuff on the YouTube channel that I can't do on podcasts. So check it out. And until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.